Have you ever wondered what happens in their mind when you go completely silent? When you stop texting, stop explaining, stop showing up? What if I told you your silence is speaking louder than any words ever could, and it's driving them insane? Today, we're diving deep into the brutal truth behind why going no contact is one of the most powerful things you can do after a breakup, rejection, or betrayal. This isn't about playing games, it's about reclaiming your peace. It's about showing, not through words, but through your absence, that your worth doesn't beg. It doesn't chase. It doesn't break. You see, when someone loses access to your energy, especially when they took it for granted, the silence becomes haunting. The quiet eats away at them. At first, they act like it doesn't matter, but then the space starts to speak. The messages don't come, the updates disappear, the attention fades, and the version of you that once poured everything into them is gone. And they don't know what to do with the silence. Because silence is a mirror. It forces them to sit with the echo of their own choices. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." That's what no contact really is. It's not revenge. It's transformation. It's healing. It's dignity. It's power. In this video, I'll take you through 7 life-shifting realizations about why no contact messes with their mind and empowers yours. Each one is built on Stoic philosophy, human psychology, and real-life growth. We'll break down what's happening emotionally and mentally on both sides of the silence. You'll walk away not just feeling stronger, but being stronger. And before we begin, I want you to type this in the comments. My silence is not weakness, it is power. Let's get into it. Number 1, they're addicted to the attention you took away. You were a source of constant energy, a presence that reassured them, entertained them, validated them, whether they admitted it or not. Maybe they acted distant. Maybe they told you they needed space. But now that your presence is gone, they feel it like a withdrawal. Because, truthfully, they were addicted to your attention. Psychologists call it emotional reinforcement. Every text you sent, every time you checked in, apologized, explained yourself, it fed them. Not always because they cared, but because it gave them power. Power over your emotions, over your time, over your peace. And then you disappeared. That's the moment the power shifted. They didn't expect you to actually stop. They thought your love would override your strength, that your need for them would outweigh your respect for yourself. But it didn't. You vanished, not to hurt them, but to heal you. And now, they're spiraling. They check your last scene. They hover over your old messages. They post things just to provoke a reaction, but nothing comes. And that's when it starts to mess with their mind, because silence feels like indifference. And to someone who used to control your emotions, indifference is unbearable. Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." You've taken your freedom back. You've stopped responding to what no longer deserves your energy. You're no longer controlled by their moods, their breadcrumbs, their mixed signals. You see, when you go no contact, you're not punishing them. You're protecting yourself. You're no longer giving free access to someone who misused your presence. You're no longer the safety net for someone who wouldn't even catch you. And that realization, that they can't reach you emotionally anymore, it drives them insane. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I am no longer their supply. I am my own peace. Number 2, your absence forced them to face themselves. When you were around, they had a distraction, a mirror they could manipulate. a person they could project their flaws onto and avoid doing the inner work. But when you went silent, when you walked away and never looked back, it left them alone, not just with the silence, but with themselves. And for some people, that's terrifying. See, most people run from self-reflection. They drown it in noise, chasing attention, validation, new relationships, anything to avoid looking in the mirror and asking the hard questions. Why did I treat them that way? Why did I push them away? What am I afraid of losing? But your silence is louder than any argument could have been. It doesn't offer them a target to fight. It doesn't let them gaslight, manipulate, or deflect. It just exists and forces them to sit with the consequences of their actions. This is where psychology meets Stoic wisdom. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When you remove your light from their life, their own thoughts begin to color everything. Regret, guilt, confusion, and for the first time, they can't blame you, because you're not there. They have to face the way they acted, the words they said, the way they took your love for granted. And that silent accountability, it eats at them, because now there's no distraction, no one left to chase. Just their own reflection staring back. No contact doesn't just protect your peace, it strips away their ability to avoid the truth. And if they were emotionally immature, that silence becomes unbearable, because growth was never their goal, comfort was. And now that you're gone, they realize how uncomfortable they are in their own skin. But you've evolved. You've faced your own darkness and came out stronger. You no longer need closure from them. You became your own closure. Let them wrestle with the silence. Let them face the person they've been. Because while they're stuck in the past, you're walking into a future they're no longer a part of. Number 3. You took back the power they thought you'd never claim. For a long time they thought they had the upper hand. Maybe it was because you always responded. You always cared. You always showed up, no matter how they treated you. You forgave things that hurt. You explained yourself when they didn't deserve it. You loved them through their indifference. And they mistook that love for weakness. They thought you'd always be available, that no matter how far they pushed, you'd come running back. That they could breadcrumb you just enough to keep you hoping, hurting, and holding on. But when you went no contact, you broke the game. You ended the chase. And suddenly, the power shifted. Because now, they're the one refreshing their screen. They're the one overthinking your silence. They're wondering if you've moved on, if you're happy, if someone else is appreciating what they threw away. That control they thought they had? Gone. And it's driving them crazy. Psychologists call this a narcissistic injury, when someone who relied on your attention to feed their ego suddenly loses access. It creates emotional chaos within them. They can't stand the quiet, because it exposes their irrelevance. They need your reaction to feel powerful, and you're not giving it to them anymore. The Stoics taught this long ago. As Epictetus said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. You took your freedom back the moment you stopped explaining yourself. You stopped begging to be seen. You stopped placing your worth in someone else's hands. And now they feel powerless. Because what's more powerful than someone who no longer needs validation? Someone who realized they were always enough, even when they were treated like they weren't. You've reclaimed your narrative. You've stepped into a version of yourself that doesn't chase, because you attract. You elevate. You walk away from anything that doesn't match your peace, and they feel it, loudly, painfully, desperately. Number 4. Your absence forced them to face themselves. Most people don't fear being alone. They fear being alone with their own thoughts. And when you went silent, you didn't just disappear from their life. You removed the distraction that kept them from facing who they really are. You were the mirror, the comfort, the emotional safety net. Even if they treated you like an afterthought, deep down, they knew you were the one person who truly saw them. And now, with no contact in place, there's no one left to validate them, to soothe their guilt, or to make their flaws feel lovable. Now, it's just them and their silence, their choices, their actions. And that's terrifying, because now they're hearing their own excuses without your forgiveness to cushion it. They're replaying the way they treated you without your presence to soften the impact. They're waking up to the reality that maybe you weren't the problem, maybe they were. Marcus Aurelius once said, "He who lives in harmony with himself lives in harmony with the universe." But the truth is, some people are not in harmony, and your absence exposes that more than your presence ever could. When you stopped responding, you stopped enabling, and now they're spiraling in the silence. They scroll through your profile looking for signs. They ask mutual friends about you. They stay up at night, wondering if you're missing them like they're missing you. But all they get is quiet. And in that quiet, they're finally forced to listen to the noise inside themselves. No contact isn't just a strategy, it's healing, it's space, it's reclaiming your energy and giving it back to you. Let them feel your absence. Let them sit with what they created. Let them face the version of themselves they always ran from, because that's not your weight to carry anymore. Number 5. They thought you'd wait forever. They underestimated you. They thought you'd pause your entire life, hoping for a message. They believed your world revolved around them, that no matter how long they ghosted you, disrespected you, or played mind games, you'd always be there, waiting. But something shifted, not overnight, not in some grand, dramatic way. Quietly, powerfully, slowly, you stopped waiting, you started healing, and that is what's driving them insane, because they weren't expecting your silence to mean freedom. They thought it meant punishment, a phase, a reaction, something temporary. But when they realized you weren't just quiet, you were gone, everything changed. You see, some people get addicted to being needed. They thrive on being the center of someone else's emotional universe. So when you pulled away, they didn't just lose attention, they lost significance. And that burns deeper than any argument or goodbye ever could. Psychologists call this narcissistic injury. It's when someone's ego is bruised by rejection they never saw coming, especially from someone they thought they had wrapped around their finger. You chose not to waste another second on someone who couldn't choose you back. You stopped checking their story. You stopped hoping they'd change. You stopped answering in your mind what they never had the courage to ask out loud. You began living for you. Now, they're panicking because the version of you that stayed hopeful is gone, and the version that replaced it, glowing, strong, whole, unreachable. They waited too long thinking you'd always be the same. But healing changed your name, and now they have to live with the fact that someone they took for granted found the strength to move on. Number 6. They're haunted by the new you. They used to know you like clockwork. They could read your texts before you typed them, predict your emotions, count on you to reach out first. You were familiar. You were soft. You were the one who'd never walk away. But that version of you doesn't exist anymore. And that's what's driving them insane. They scroll through your life now like a stranger. Your energy has changed. Your eyes have peace instead of panic. Your silence doesn't say, "I miss you." It screams, "I found me." That unsettles them, because when someone loses access to the version of you they once manipulated, they have to face a terrifying truth. They never really knew you. They only knew your wounds. You were once the person who apologized too much, who gave second chances like candy, who stayed up late rereading messages, wondering what you did wrong. Now, you're choosing peace over explanation, distance over dysfunction, growth over guilt. They don't recognize you, and that's not your problem, it's their regret. Psychologically, this is called cognitive dissonance. They built an identity for you in their mind, one where you'd always be the chaser, the forgiver, the one who'd bend to keep the peace. But when your actions no longer align with that script, they're forced to confront their false reality. And it hurts. They thought silence was absence, but you turned it into evolution. You didn't just go quiet, you transformed in the dark. And now you shine too brightly for their comfort. Epictetus once said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." And you did exactly that. You became someone you're proud of, someone they can't reach, not because you're hiding, but because you've elevated beyond their frequency. And that, right there, is the revenge they never saw coming. Number 7. Your silence forced them to hear themselves. When you were always the one reaching out, they never had to sit with their thoughts. Your voice drowned out their accountability. Your texts kept them from facing their guilt. Your presence gave them permission to avoid self-reflection. But now it's quiet. No distractions, no messages, no lifeline, just themselves and everything they tried to run from. That's why they're unraveling. No contact isn't just about ignoring someone. It's about holding up a mirror, and that mirror doesn't lie. When you removed your energy, they were forced to meet the parts of themselves they tried to project onto you. The insecurities, the fear of abandonment, the inability to love properly. Your silence became a storm in their mind. They replay conversations, overanalyze moments, regret words they thought you'd always forgive. They wonder, did I go too far? Did I lose them for good? Was it me all along? And deep down, they know the answer. They just don't know how to live with it. You weren't silent to punish, you were silent to protect. And in protecting yourself, you taught them something no lecture could. That real loss doesn't scream, it disappears. As the Stoic Seneca once wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." You're not wasting time anymore, not chasing closure, not explaining your worth, not shrinking for someone who couldn't even show up. They hear your silence now, loud and clear. And what it says is this: I've chosen peace, and you're not part of it. That truth is driving them insane, because they know, if they ever come back, they're not returning to the old you. They're facing someone who found strength in solitude, someone who built a life without needing them in it. And that's the most powerful thing you could have ever done. Look, they thought your silence was weakness. They thought no contact was a game. But what they didn't see coming was the strength it took to walk away without slamming the door. They didn't realize how powerful you'd become the moment you stopped explaining and started evolving. This journey isn't just about getting over someone. It's about getting back to you, your peace, your standards, your self-worth. And if you've made it this far, know this: you're not just healing, you're leveling up. You've survived the storm. Now walk like the thunder, because when you go no contact, it's not to get a reaction, it's to get your soul back. So, here's your reminder. You don't need closure from someone who was never open. You don't need love from someone who never respected your heart. And you don't need validation from someone who couldn't even validate their own truth. You are enough. You've always been enough. And now you're finally treating yourself like it. And if you ever feel the urge to break the silence, don't. Not because you're punishing them, but because you're protecting your peace. And that's sacred. If this video spoke to your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Like it, share it and subscribe, because we're building a tribe of healed, empowered, unstoppable souls here. Your silence is not empty. It's full of growth. And it's driving them insane for a reason, because they know what they lost. And now, they're the one listening to the silence you chose over their noise. Stay strong, stay silent, stay rising, and I'll see you in the next video.